Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Unlocking the Paradigm Portal. My name is Sarah, and I am here to say a solid thank you to everything that is magical and mystical, that today is the final day of the year of the snake. What's that, you ask? Well, buckle up. You might get triggered into an awakening just by learning about it. And as an FYI, for those who cringe at the term awakening, it's literally just about expanding your perception and seeing things and yourself from a broader and different view. So chill, please. So before we get into this, I'm going to give you some quick context in case you're wondering what I mean by the year of the snake. So in the Chinese zodiac, each lunar year is represented by an animal, and each one carries a different kind of theme or energy, and not in some mystical your fate is decided kind of way, but more like a symbolic lens for the kinds of patterns that tend to show up collectively. So the snake is associated with transformation, shedding, introspection, and truth coming to the surface. And think less like the happy little horoscopes that we used to see in the newspaper, and more like a year that pushes you inward and quietly changes you, whether you plan for it or not. That's why I said buckle up. Snake years tend to bring endings and identity shifts and reality checks, and that really disconcerting and uncomfortable sense that something in your life doesn't fit anymore, even if you can't immediately explain why. And it's very much a you can't stay the same kind of energy, but not always dramatic on the outside, but super intense on the inside. And that shedding symbolism is a big part of it. So snakes don't negotiate with the old skin. They don't keep pieces of it for sentimental reasons. They outgrow it, they split it open, and they leave it behind, which is a pretty accurate metaphor for the kind of personal changes that a lot of people go through during a snake year. And I will say a big old hell yes on all of this for me in this past year. And fun fact, I didn't even know anything about this until, I don't remember, it was months ago. And then all of a sudden, the entire course of the previous year for me made perfect sense. So I am so excited to be here today closing this shit out. We're at the end of a cycle that has been very good at exposing what wasn't working, what isn't working if you're still holding on to it, and very, very bad at being subtle about it. So if you are clinging to something or a job or a relationship or a person or anything, if you are clinging to it and it is not working and everything in you is saying it is not working, the closing out of this year is like severing that. So either learn how to release and let go, or be prepared for the fallout for that. And again, it's not easy to do all of that. Reference back to the 8 million videos that I've done in the last couple of months on letting go. It's a process, friends. So if this year felt like you were being emotionally exfoliated against your will, yep, that tracks. Congratulations. It's very on brand for a snake year. And today isn't about romanticizing it. It's about closing it. The year of the snake has been rough, personally. It's been painful. It's been shocking. It's been probably the most challenging year that I've had ever. And at the same time, the most transformative and beautiful as well. And honestly, I don't want a highlight reel. I don't want a montage. I don't want some kind of soft inspirational recap that's set to some, emotional piano music or something like that. I want the energetic equivalent of dragging a giant trash bag to the curb and saying, yep, we're done here. Because if this year has felt like shedding, it wasn't this cute, glowing, like social media ready kind of version of transformation. It was more like realizing halfway through the year that my life didn't fit anymore. My coping strategies stopped working, and my nervous system had become permanently suspicious of everything. And enough's enough, right? Some shedding felt empowering, and some shedding felt like emotional road rash. And some of it didn't feel like growth at all. It felt like demolition. And this year forced endings of identities, endings of relationships, endings of illusions, endings of roles that I didn't even realize I was playing. Is anybody else feeling this right now? And things that I thought were permanent suddenly weren't. And things that I tolerated for years suddenly became unbearable and impossible. And when that moment hit, it wasn't difficult. It was oh no, 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 and done. And some of the things that I used to rely on stopped feeling safe. Some of the parts of myself that I relied on stopped feeling safe because I'd outgrown all of them. Some of the people that I'd relied on stopped feeling safe because it wasn't working anymore. Some of the work situations, family relationships, everything, it's been a complete reevaluation followed by that recalibration. And it happens through quiet and stillness. That's why I've focused so much on nervous system and breathing and becoming very quiet and still, because then you can feel so deeply when things are a yes and when they're a no. And choices become a lot easier once you can identify what feels good, easy, peaceful, and what feels chaotic, tumultuous, challenging. Because growth is fun until it starts taking your favorite defense mechanisms with it. And that's a part of the shedding. Your defense mechanisms have to go. We're going into full-on vulnerability. And then suddenly it's like being left standing there like, oh, okay, so it's just everything's like raw now. That's it. And there's also this weird in-between phase that happens during a year like this where you don't recognize who you used to be, but you don't fully know who you're becoming yet either. You're not who you were, and you're not who you're going to be. You're just like molting in the middle of your life, trying to function like a normal human being, which feels, frankly, wildly inconsiderate, honestly. However, I'm in this point myself right now, and this is the first time ever that it feels untethered, uncertain, and I'm riding that one. I'm like loving it so much. It makes me think of the image that I keep getting is like that indoor, what is it called? Like skydiving thing where the air is blowing you up and you're floating, but you're not actually flying. It's just because the air is pushing you up. And it's that in between. That's how I feel right now. And it feels kind of cool. I don't know. I'm actually enjoying it a little bit. That being said, there is still shit to get done. And the difficult thing is when you're in that in-between place, it is kind of, I often reference back to A League of Their Own in the Marla Hooch moment where she's at home plate and she's shuffling forward and she's stepping backwards because she doesn't know if she's supposed to hit a home run or she's supposed to bunt. And that's kind of what it feels like. And the trouble with it is that like society and other people expect you to keep showing up and keep performing and keep being productive while internally it's like you're rearranging your entire identity. And no one hands you a note that says, sorry, she can't come to the meeting today because she's shedding outdated survival patterns. Wouldn't that be really useful though? And here's the part I think doesn't get talked about enough. Not all lessons feel wise when you're learning them. Some lessons just feel like chaos, and some lessons just feel like loss, and some feel like being emotionally sandblasted until the truth is exposed, whether you wanted it or not. I can say I've had all three. All three. Some also felt like relief. And all of them, there were valuable realizations that came through all of them, just different manners of delivery. And there were big old moments of clarity. And there were times that I saw myself differently, saw other people differently, and saw my life differently. But there were also moments where I thought I would like fewer character building experiences, please, because growth doesn't just give insight, it takes things. It takes illusions that were comfortable. It takes relationships that were built on versions of ourselves that don't exist anymore. It takes the ability to pretend everything is fine when it isn't. And this year stripped away a lot of pretending. And now we're here on the last day of it, standing in the aftermath, looking around like, well, so that happened. And here's what I want to say about closing this chapter. You don't have to carry everything forward just because it taught you something. You don't have to drag the pain into the future as proof that it mattered. You can keep the wisdom and leave the emotional debris. You can take the clarity and leave the chaos. And you can honor what changed you without continuing to live inside of it. Closure doesn't always come with a bow on it. Sometimes closure is just deciding I'm not revisiting that version of myself again, not out of anger, not out of denial, out of recognition and awareness, because some chapters aren't meant to be reread. They're meant to be finished, period. Close the book. Start the next one. This year asked a lot of all of us, and it asked us to see things that we didn't want to see, and it asked us to feel things that we'd been avoiding, and it asked us to stop settling in places that were slowly draining us. And it asked us to let go of versions of ourselves that felt familiar but weren't actually aligned anymore. And letting go of familiarity is one of the hardest things that we do as humans, because familiarity feels safe, even when it isn't. It feels comfortable, even when it isn't. It feels like home, even when it isn't. It's just what you've known, and it takes effort to change that. So if this year felt heavy, if it felt disorienting, if it felt like you lost pieces of yourself and gained others you're still getting used to, you didn't do it wrong. You were shedding, and shedding isn't graceful. It's uncomfortable. It's awkward. It's messy. It's the process of becoming someone who can't go back to who they used to be. So today isn't about romanticizing the struggle. It's about acknowledging it and then putting it down. Not everything from your past deserves a seat in your future. Some experiences are meant to shape you, not stay with you. And some lessons are meant to free you and not haunt you. And some years are meant to end without ceremony. So if you need permission to close this chapter without nostalgia, without trying to extract one more meaning from it, without forcing gratitude for things that just hurt, here it is. You can say that happened and it changed me, and I'm leaving it here, because tomorrow is new energy, and you don't have to walk into it carrying things that were only meant to get you through the last one. Some years are meant to be integrated, and this one, I'm filing it under completed and I'm walking away. You know why? Because Tuesday we start the year of the fire horse. So buckle up for that one. That is exciting. And it's a new moon, and it's a solar eclipse. And then like 3 days later, we've got all this other cool astrological stuff happening. I'm not even going to get into that because there's like a million other people who know far more than I do. But this is a big week, like a super big week. So I am very excited to hear whether you follow anything astrological or not, whether you buy into it, I don't even care. I'm just curious what you're feeling. Are you feeling this shedding? And if you are, pack it up, pitch it out in the dumpster, and let's walk forward into the year of the fire horse together. All right, I will be back tomorrow. Hell, I might come back later tonight just to check in. We'll see if I have time. So have a wonderful day and continue shedding.